So I'm going to talk a little bit on nuclear from a different perspective, that of an environmental activist. And without further ado, let's get started. It's so nice to be here, and thanks for the invite. And I hope everybody is having a good day so far. I know I am. So let's start with a small introduction. You did notice that I'm representing the Eco-Modernist Society of Finland. So what's eco-modernism? We are a politically and economically independent science and evidence-based environmental organization. So founded in 2015 and basically by people who got a little bit frustrated with the ideological baggage that many of the traditional environmental organizations have with them. So we are very sharply science and evidence focused. About me, as mentioned, I'm a science writer, mainly on energy and climate, and recently quite a lot about nuclear. And the latest book, The Dark Horse, is also coming out in Estonian soon, so stay tuned for that. And as a day job, activism is right now not my day job, but I lead Think Atom, which is an independent nonprofit think tank, and we think a lot about how to decarbonize our society and energy systems with nuclear reactors, small, advanced, big, whatever. And here's some publications that I've recently done, and you can check them out from the website as well. They are free to download. Okay, well, so Stand Up for Nuclear. It's an event that have been held twice. So last September and the one before that. And last year it went truly global. 28 countries, 67 cities, 10 virtual events. You can see that there's Tallinn, Tartu, Helsinki, a lot of places around the Baltic Sea, about 1,000 participants and up to 15,000 attendees. So it's growing quite fast, and you can find it in very surprising locations as well. Regarding how we were received in sort of mass media or mainstream media, it was quite positive. We some of the local events went to national TV news, and some newspapers covered them. This, of course, depends a lot on the local environment, how these things are replaced. I'm especially glad that Germany covered the events as much as they did, because the German situation is quite problematic, as we learned, for example, from Staffan Quist's presentation earlier today. So it's getting the attention, and then we just need to keep on pushing. But why would somebody want to stand up for nuclear? Can't nuclear stand up for itself? I mean, well, the problem here is that it hasn't been standing up for itself. So activists around the world who realize that actually nuclear is the technology that can lift all humans out of poverty while also protecting the natural environment. And it's basically the best option to do that. And somebody should stand for it. Because in spite of these kind of characteristics that nuclear has, it's heavily under attack in European countries, as well as on the EU, European Commission and Parliament levels, in Asia, in North America. There's a lot of opposition. And I'm not sure if it's in spite of this, the good qualities that nuclear has, or if it's because of those. Depends on the day and how you look at it, I guess. And for politicians, it's been way easier to kind of please or agree with the anti-nuclear sentiment for a long time, because nobody has been challenging that for like the last 40 years, almost nobody, that is. So it's become the norm to kind of agree, yeah, we shouldn't have nuclear and we don't need it, and so forth. But and we're kind of stuck in that mindset. And even if right now we have these reports and studies coming out that we need a lot of new nuclear, much more actually than the nuclear industry is prepared to deliver so far, to mitigate climate change effectively. So the point of standing up for nuclear as civil society, publicly and visibly, is that it gives politicians and policymakers kind of license, social license, to support it as well. So it's not controversial anymore. It's actually what my personal aim is, to have it controversial not to support nuclear, because that's what it actually is. So we need to shift that debate on its head. Right. What's European Union policy going towards? I mean, there's a lot of talk of fossil-free EU, but in reality, you have Belgium and other countries, Germany, phasing out their nuclear fleets and then subsidizing new gas plants and subsidizing gas pipelines and building more fossil fuel infrastructure. So it's not, we are not going in the direction that we should be going at. Belgium, as a result of this, in a recent study by Ember, Belgium will be the only European country that will increase its emissions from electricity due to this policy of phasing out nuclear and subsidizing new gas plants. That's in the 2030 timeframe. So that gives you something to think. While actually the need for new clean energy is quite a bit higher than we many times think. So we already know that nuclear supplies about half of the clean electricity in Europe, and about 2/3 of European electricity is clean. But if we want to decarbonize, for example, our chemical industry, just this one industry, including petrochemicals, we will have, on the left side, you have clean power today. That's the whole little bit under 2,000 terawatt hours of clean power supplied in Europe. So if you want to have 85% emissions reductions from the processes of chemical industry, you need to build about as much again. And then if you want to actually decarbonize the fuels, like the raw material for the fuel, you maybe need to make hydrogen and synthetic fuels from that instead of using crude oil as the feedstock. Then you can multiply that by 5 times easily to get really carbon neutral chemical industry. And that's just one industry. So I think it's a horrible position to kind of be in when many countries are phasing out the biggest source of clean electricity, while we are facing this tremendous need for actually increasing clean electricity many times over in the next 30 years. So there's this kind of problem between the discussion and the reality. In Finland, we've been doing Stand Up for Nuclear as well. And as maybe many of you know, Finland is in a quite good situation, at least compared to many others. So nuclear has not been under attack for some years. It's generally quite accepted, even though doesn't received much in the way of support. We have new project. We have the Olkiluoto 3, which hopefully will start up soon, but I've been saying that for a while. And then we have the Hanhikivi, hopefully getting construction license soon and starting the first concrete. So mainly in Finland, we stood for nuclear in solidarity with the European and other nations that are in a much worse situation. And then we also looked for some kind of way that we could push the envelopes of lead us forward, take the next steps, because right now, I mean, projects like Olkiluoto 3, that's not going to be enough. We need better projects. We need more projects, faster and more cost-effective projects. So we need to think how to do that. And that was our kind of team. We did this calculation, back of the envelope style, how much new electricity production capacity Finland will need by 2050. So we started with this roadmaps that all the major industries came up in Finland last year. So everybody published a roadmap, how they will decarbonize and how much clean energy they will need for that decarbonization. So they would be in line with the government's targets of being carbon neutral by 2035 and way carbon negative by 2050. So we can start with the metal industry. That's about 10 terawatt hours, so one big reactor. The petrochemical industry, depending if you want to calculate the scope 3 emissions as well. So that's the crude oil, and replacing that instead of just all the processes, you could need something between 40 to 80 terawatt hours of clean electricity. And so that's almost as much as we have demand today. And in addition to that, we would like to replace about 20 terawatt hours of imports that we currently have. Then we have fossil fueled combined heat and power capacity that also does district heat, 15 terawatt hours, maybe 10 terawatt hours of retiring wind. So all the wind power that we have built and will build by 2025 will need to be retired and rebuilt somehow as well by 2050. The current fleet of nuclear reactors are getting old, so maybe we need to replace those around 2050 as well. If not, then that's good, but probably. And then we're going to electrify our transportation, which will take something between 5 and 10 terawatt hours. So, and we have about 20 terawatt hours now under construction. So we need about 10 big reactors worth of new reliable production capacity by 2050. And like I said, we don't want those to be Olkiluoto 3 type projects. We need them to be very good projects. And there's an opportunity here that we wanted to bring up in our kind of stand up for nuclear, is that if you have need for 10 big reactors or 30 small reactors or whatever, then you can plan serial production and you can plan the projects to make sense and then learn by doing, and instead of building one reactor here and another type of reactor there and always kind of paying the first expenses and first of a kind fees you have. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions. Just stop sharing here.
Rauli, thank you very much for that balanced presentation. I would like to ask you just a couple of questions which are related to the good balance. And you work with non-fiction, you work with facts, and yet it would seem that those who are pro-nuclear and those who are against use a different set of facts to justify and to form their opinions. So if we assume that there is one set of facts, scientific facts, that is accurate, then how come there are so many Greens who are against nuclear, whereas those who are pro-nuclear see that renewable energy is a part of the solution? Where does this discrepancy come from?
Well, to start, in Finland, we actually have quite a bit of Greens who are for nuclear, and that's exciting. That Atte Harjanne that I interviewed in the study is a Green Parliament member, and he ran for the Parliament on an openly pro-nuclear platform. So it's developing, and we are hoping to get the rest of the Europe on board of this as well. But regarding the facts, they are not always same facts. But even if they are same facts, we need to realize that people come from different places. So somebody has some values and somebody else has some other values, and each of us has this kind of 20, 30, 40, 50 years of context in their life that they look at the facts through. So the same facts can be looked in many ways and interpreted in many ways. And that's something that has been very challenging as a communicator, is to how I account for this, and it's been a problem with the nuclear industry in particular, is that they just like to throw numbers at people as much as and fast as possible, and then they just assume that everybody will come from the same mindset and believe the numbers, but that almost never happens. So it's a small subset of the population that's this kind of engineering background that wants to have their information with numbers. So you have to have the values there, and you have to share those values and find a way not to convince people, but to make them able to convince themselves and change their mind about this. And so it's a very complex question. Could have done a presentation on that only.
All right. And I understand that you would like to talk more and more about this, but unfortunately we do have to finish here with this particular presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a nice day.